Last month, I spoke with Jessica, a top student with a 3.9 GPA. She had her heart set on a top 10 law school, but because of one critical LSAT prep mistake, she lost out on $300,000 in scholarship offers. The mistake wasn't that she didn't work hard. She studied for 6 months, took dozens of practice tests, and reviewed every single one of them. But her strategy was fundamentally flawed. Today, I'm going to show you exactly what went wrong, why so many students fall into the same trap, and how you can avoid it. Now, Jessica's story is common. Her scores bounced between 156 and 163, but she couldn't break past that plateau. When I asked her how she reviewed her tests, she said, "I read the explanations and try to understand where I went wrong, then I take another test." This approach, what I call random practice, is what holds most students back. It feels productive because you're putting in the hours, but it doesn't actually address the underlying issues. If you're making the same mistakes over and over without analyzing why, you're stuck in a loop. I know this because I've been there. First, for those who don't know me, my name is Steve Schwartz. I've been teaching the LSAT since 2005, and I personally increased my own LSAT score from a 152 to 175. Now, when I first started studying for the LSAT, yes, my cold diagnostic was a 152. I remember thinking to myself, I can learn this. How hard could this test really be? I was a good student, I worked hard, and I was confident that with enough practice, I could get my score up to where it needed to be. So I did what most students do. I took a bunch of practice tests and reviewed my mistakes. I worked through hundreds of questions, sometimes feeling like I was improving, but other times feeling totally stuck. My scores hovered in the low 160s for months, and I couldn't figure out why. One day, after yet another disappointing practice test, I decided to stop everything and take a hard look at my study habits. And that's when I realized I was doing the same thing over and over, hoping for different results. I wasn't digging into my mistakes to figure out why I was missing certain questions. I wasn't tracking patterns or targeting my weaknesses. But once I changed my approach, everything clicked. I started breaking down my mistakes by question type and error pattern. For example, I noticed I was consistently struggling with necessary assumption questions because I was treating them like sufficient assumption questions. I also realized I was second-guessing myself on flaw questions and overthinking simple arguments. By targeting those weaknesses, my score skyrocketed from, yes, a 152 up to a 175. It wasn't easy, and it didn't happen overnight, but once I had a system in place, I saw steady, measurable progress. So if you're feeling stuck or overwhelmed, I want you to know it's not about how many hours you put in. It's about studying the right way. And that's exactly what I help students do. At LSAT Unplugged, we offer personalized, private, one-on-one LSAT coaching to help students like you break through plateaus and maximize your potential. Whether you're aiming for your first 170 plus LSAT score or trying to secure scholarship money, my coaching programs focus on building a customized strategy tailored to your strengths and weaknesses. If you're ready to take your LSAT prep to the next level, you could check out the links below to find out more and to book a call with me and my team. We'd love to help you reach your LSAT goals. Now, let's dive into the exact steps you can take to avoid Jessica's mistake. The first is misunderstanding necessary assumption versus sufficient assumption questions. A necessary assumption question asks you, what needs to be true for this argument to work? These questions require you to find a key assumption the argument cannot survive without. A sufficient assumption, on the other hand, asks, what guarantees the conclusion? These answers might feel more direct and absolute. One of my students, Jacob, struggled with this distinction. He kept picking strong, persuasive-sounding answers in necessary assumption questions, but they weren't actually required for the argument to work. Once he learned to look for the bare minimum the argument needed to hold up, his score jumped from the low 160s to a 171 in just 8 weeks. Now, here are 3 common mistakes holding you back. Every mistake on the LSAT falls into one of these categories. The first is misunderstanding the question type. Are you confusing necessary versus sufficient assumptions? Are you struggling with parallel reasoning because you don't fully understand the argument structure? Or maybe you're misapplying a concept or rule. For example, are you mixing up correlation and causation in strength and weakening questions? And finally, are you making process errors like running out of time, rushing through questions, or second-guessing yourself? Now, here's how to identify patterns. When my students analyze their mistakes, they don't just look at what they got wrong, they figure out why. This involves asking, using the Socratic review method framework, what questions am I consistently missing? Are there specific argument structures or logical concepts that trip me up? Or am I making process-related errors like mismanaging my time or overthinking? Now, here's the exact process you can use to start seeing results. First, track every question you miss. Write down everything you guess on, even if you got it right and got lucky, because it could have gone the other way, of course. Note the question type, your initial thought process, and why you think you got it wrong. Also, review for patterns. Each week, look for trends in what you're missing. Could it be necessary assumptions, or maybe more abstract science reading count passages? Whatever it is, ID the recurring issues. You also want to engage in targeted drills where you focus exclusively on your weak areas. So for example, if you're struggling with parallel reasoning, you might want to focus on those for a couple days. If timing's an issue, work on pacing drills with individual sections. Then, at the end of each week, check your progress to evaluate your performance. Are you still making the same mistakes? If so, adjust your approach and refine your strategy. Because here's the reality. Every week you spend on random practice is costing you potential scholarship money. A 3-point jump on the LSAT could translate into $150,000 in scholarships at top law schools. Imagine what a 10 or 15-point jump could do for your future. Don't let inefficient study habits hold you back. And if you'd like my help getting that LSAT score up, ideally to 170 plus, my team and I would be glad to help you out. You could check out the links below to find out more and to book a call with me and my team. And in the meantime, I'll wish you all the best and take care.